I was so late to the party on this one. This movie has gotten all the hype in the world. Oscar buzz, just did amazing at the box office, further established its leading star as a continuing leading star. This movie has had it all, and I've finally got the chance to see Phil Lord and Christopher Miller's sci-fi epic, Project Hail Mary. Boy, I have been so excited to finally talk about this movie, and now I finally have the chance, guys, so let's get into it. So I've had the opposite effect as so many other people. There was some early buzz for this movie, but for the most part, I think this was largely unexpected for definitely the wider audience for this film. I don't think people were expecting this movie to be as massive of a hit as it has become. I have seen it post all of the reactions and people comparing it to some of the greatest sci-fi epics of the modern era, like Interstellar and such. I think this film is really great. I think it's really charming. I think it's well shot. I think it's well produced. I think it's well acted. I think it has so many things going for it. But for me personally, I wouldn't quite put it up to that very top tier for a couple of reasons, which I will explain in this video. But as a whole, I think this movie is very hard not to like. This film is oozing with charm, with charisma, with heart. It feels so hopeful, it feels so human, and it feels like a good duo after I recently just rewatched E.T. It feels like a really great modern companion piece to a movie like that. I think Phil Lord and Christopher Miller really knocked it out of the park with their directorial efforts here. They are usually ones that step back and have a lot of hands in the creative vision with producing and such. They have had a really loud voice in terms of the Spider-Verse movies, even though they didn't directly direct those films. Their actual directorial efforts, I think, are really solid though. They started off with Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is a really nice animated movie. Following that with 21 and 22 Jump Street, just some all-timer comedies. I mean, they're movies I've rewatched constantly throughout the years. Some all-timer moments there. Obviously the Lego movie too. And this movie, it just feels like a nice continuation and shows how versatile they are as filmmakers, diving into full sci-fi territory here and adapting, I think, a book that has a little bit of complexity to it. There is some hard math and some interesting physics at play here. And I think if you are someone that is just really fascinated by space and some of the planets and how they are different, I think you will get a bit of a kick out of this movie, as I did. That was something that was huge in my childhood. Definitely wanted to be an astronaut growing up and read so many space books and such. And you just learn all of these little fun facts about the planets. And then there's this problem that is happening, this threat that is happening. And the evidence is pointed at some strange occurrences happening at Venus. And as the revelation grows as to what's actually going on there and the science behind it, if you actually know about Venus, it all just clicks and makes sense. And there's just little elements like that that I really appreciated being put into this movie. It shows that it has been well thought out and they're just trying to do something that feels somewhat authentic, even if there are just some wildly outlandish moments where you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief, as happens in some of the climactic moments in this movie where characters would 100% die in the situation they are in, but they've got to do this big giant set piece because, well, it's a movie and you have to suspend some of that disbelief. And really, we don't need to be doing that with every single scene. It's nice to have fun every once in a while, and I think Project Hail Mary definitely achieves that. I think the stakes that are at play here are so fascinating. You know, the sun is slowly dying, it's dimming, and the temperature on Earth is going to drastically shift, causing life-altering effects on Earth. That is a somewhat similar thing that is happening to Earth in Interstellar, in some sense, where the Earth is dying and someone needs to go out on a really high-risk mission that is a wild long shot in order to potentially save the planet or start new life. And Project Hail Mary does its own spin on that here, and I think that's where the similarities with Interstellar ends, because I think this goes on its own path. It's less self-serious, it's definitely more charming and funny, and I think that does work to the benefit of the film and works to the strengths of the lead performer in Ryan Gosling, who, as we know, can just charm the hell out of anyone. I don't think there's anyone on this planet that doesn't like this guy. He has always turned in a great performance. He's so versatile in everything he does. Yes, he can be silly and goofy with Barbie. He can do really heavy dramas and get really serious in the Nicholas Winding Refn movies he has done, Blade Runner 2049 and such. And then, of course, just combining the two with Project Hail Mary, I think we see a good bit of both of what Gosling can do here. There are definitely moments of seriousness and there are definitely moments of comedy, and I do think they both work. Sometimes they collide a little bit too close to each other, which does undercut some of the serious moments, which is a trope that I don't particularly enjoy seeing in films. I think when there's a situation that has weight, it needs to breathe out a bit and have a bit of weight, and don't just undercut it with a joke straight away. And that does do that every now and again. And I understand why, because this film is ultimately a crowd pleaser, and that's what it's going for, and that's what it has achieved, and it definitely achieved that with me. And I think the heart and soul of this movie definitely boils down to the bond that Grace, the character that Ryan Gosling plays, his connection with Rocky, this alien life form who is just so charming, so cute, so funny, and the bond they share throughout this movie. It feels very reminiscent of something like E.T. and the bond that Elliot and E.T. share in that movie. And I think moments like that, I think, are just so charming and illustrate the very best of humanity and the power that a connection like that really brings, and what that feels like in 2026, where I think we need that optimism and hope at its most. And I'm really glad to see that being portrayed in a movie like this, where there are stakes and there's serious moments where there could be no hope, but however we push through, and there's a lot of positivity shining through this movie. And I really, really love that. I think technical moments as well are utterly brilliant. There is a great use of cinematography here. We have Greg Fraser helming the camera here, and I mean, he's one of the GOATs. I mean, Dune and Dune Part 2, that's all I need to say, man. Like, he is just incredible what he has managed to do, and he just continues that on here. Very different with how it looks with its color palette and lighting. Stark differences from the scenes on Earth compared to outer space. And that also changes with the aspect ratio. You're seeing the screen really blow up in these epic moments in space and showing maybe some of the stars or the planets and such. However, on Earth, it's a little bit more dull, and the aspect ratio is really pulled in and reined in. And I think that stark difference really highlights the way that the Earth is dying and is slowly becoming devoid of life over time. And you sort of see that progress over the course of the film. And I think just little stylistic touches like that, I really, really enjoyed seeing. And I think both moments, the out of space stuff as well as the stuff on Earth, is just as compelling. And it does intercut between the two. It's sort of told in some sort of non-linear fashion with these two intersecting plot lines. And the way that they head for a collision course, I think, enriches the film in so many ways, and enriches the characters and the decisions that they make throughout. I think Sandra Hüller is amazing in this movie. So far, it is the strongest supporting performance I have seen in a film in 2026. I haven't seen many 2026 movies, so that could definitely change, but I think she was so strong here. And I didn't know she had pipes on her, because she sings in this movie, and by God, she sounded excellent with a really strong needle drop for a song that I really wasn't expecting to hit quite hard in a movie like this. But alas, it just works completely. And just moments like that, I think, just once again fill this movie with so much heart. And I think Sandra Hüller's character could easily come across very unlikable with some of the things that she does and her general demeanor. But little moments like that, little moments that shine through, just add a whole new dimension to the character, which illustrates a lot of nuance there. It showcases great writing and great direction. And I think that all just works to the benefit of the film. Visual effects are pretty outstanding. Rocky looks great in this movie, and to be able to connect to some spider rock thing is really crazy, especially a character that doesn't have a face. That is insane that we are able to draw such a deep connection to a character like that. And both the visual effects play a part in that design, as well as the writing in general. So I really love everything there. I think some of the problems that I have that don't quite put this up above the very top tier pantheon of sci-fi films and just makes it a really great movie that I definitely recommend and really enjoyed watching and would have no problems watching again. It's a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, and I have no trouble running it back because the movie was definitely fun. But some of the things that held it back a little, I think, happen generally in the third act, and I don't want to spoil too much here, but there's just certain tropes here regarding punishments and the consequences of certain actions in this movie. I think that's a better phraseology of what I'm trying to say here, where something happens that has an outcome, and it's one that is definitely going to make the audience and the characters very sad and devastated, and it sort of flips it around and gives it that hopeful twist at the end. I think it undercuts some heavy moments here in favor of that, and I think it does it one too many times. There was one time that it happens where it's really prolonged, and I thought it was extremely well justified, and I think it worked, even though it's a trope I generally despise in a movie. It's something that you see a lot in a lot of Disney films, and some of the newer Pixar films as well have done it quite a lot in its third act, and just that switch up all the time, I just find it so cheap. And as I said, it justified it the first time it did it, and then it does it like maybe 2 more times afterwards, and I was like, okay, you've run it one too many times. I can't keep doing this. You need to find a different way to make the audience feel something rather than get a cheap reaction out of them that you're just going to pull the rug out from underneath later. I just found that to be somewhat lazy, and maybe the book goes down that route as well. I haven't read the book, nor should I really need to watch this movie, and I don't think you need to, but I do think this is one of those movies that will encourage you to read the book, like a lot of great adaptations do. Be that as it may, if that is something that happens in the book too, I would have a problem with that in the book as well as the movie. So I do think the adaptation could have switched up something here and there to maybe make those moments a little bit more justified, and just switching things up a little bit to keep that momentum flowing. But as a whole, I mean, this movie is really well done. It's really well executed. I think there is so much to love here. It's a good movie for really anyone of all ages to go check out. This movie is definitely worth your time. And as a score, I'm going to give Project Hail Mary a very strong 4 out of 5, and it may improve in the future because I do think this movie was genuinely excellent. And then we now have the Oscars discussion. I've heard a lot of big talks about this. You know, the big player obviously has always been The Odyssey and a couple of others, maybe Dune 3 as well, depending on whether the divisive nature of that narrative is actually going to be divisive on screen, or if Denis is going to switch it up and make a Return of the King epic that is going to sweep. Project Hail Mary has been kind of pulled into those discussions. I personally do not see 3 blockbusters fighting it out for Best Picture. That just almost always never happens. There will be some indie films thrown in that have a genuine chance of winning, some prestige films as well. And so, to me, I think Project Hail Mary is somewhat similar to what F1 would be in terms of Oscars, right? I mean, I can see it getting a couple of tech categories, you know, visual effects, maybe a sound, because the sound is genuinely fantastic. Moments like that where it really goes above and beyond, yes, I'm expecting it to be in the mix and getting nominated. In terms of really above the line categories, like your screenplays, directors, probably acting as well, I don't see it getting in, to be honest with you. And then just sliding in maybe at that number 10 slot for Best Picture. But anyway, that's just kind of my sort of general thoughts towards its Oscars viability. I think that is a part of the general conversation with this movie. But yeah, who cares about that at the end of the day? This is a great movie. Go check it out if you haven't already. I feel like I'm the last person to see it anyway, but I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in, and that's generally what I think about Project Hail Mary. But anyway, those are my thoughts, and I would love to hear you guys in the comments below. Please let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. remember to like and subscribe. As I mentioned in my previous video, I am attempting to become a member of the Australian Film Critics Association, and so subscribing to this channel genuinely helps my application to become part of that group, and that has been a genuine goal of mine since starting this channel. And if you enjoy what I'm talking about or have watched some of my stuff previously, I would really appreciate a subscription just to help me out with that application. That would mean the world to me, but you don't have to if you don't want to. It's a free country. Do whatever you want. And anyway, those are my thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.